All right, welcome. Today, we're going to go on a little journey to follow the most important currency of all in the natural world, energy. We're going to dig into the hidden rules that connect every single living thing, from the tiniest microbe all the way up to the biggest forest.
No, I mean really stop and think about it for a second. What's the fundamental force that gets our whole planet up and running? The thing that allows a tiny seed to become a massive tree or a single cell to become, well, you.
Well, it turns out the answer is this incredible, constant, one-way flow of energy. It all kicks off with the sun. It travels through this massively complicated web of life, and eventually, it makes its way back to the Earth. This journey is the engine of everything.
And that is our mission for today. We are going to follow that exact path of energy step by step so we can understand the simple but totally profound principles that govern every single ecosystem on our planet. Ready? Let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can start following the energy, we need to understand the stage where this whole drama unfolds, the ecosystem itself.
So what exactly is an ecosystem? Well, to put it simply, it's any place where living things and the non-living environment are working together as one big system. It's this beautiful, intricate dance between life and its surroundings.
And these systems, they basically come in two main flavors. You've got your terrestrial, land-based ones like forests and deserts, and then you have the aquatic ones like rivers and lakes. Even a tiny little pond is a perfect, self-contained ecosystem that shows us all the rules in miniature.
Okay, stage is set. Now for the opening act. How on earth does energy from the sun, 93 million miles away, actually get into the system here on the ground? It all starts with capturing that sunshine.
And that brings us to a really important idea, primary productivity. It's just the fancy scientific term for how plants turn sunlight into chemical energy. You can think of it as life's energy budget. It is the absolute foundation for, well, almost all life on Earth.
And the scale of this? Honestly, it's just mind-boggling. Are you ready for this number? Every single year, the plants on our world produce about 170 billion tons of organic matter. That's the energy base for the entire living world. But wait, here's where it gets really weird and interesting. The oceans, right? They cover over 70% of our planet, but they only account for 55 billion of those tons. So this massive part of our world is actually way, way less productive. Why is that? It's a fascinating puzzle. So, okay, plants have captured all this incredible energy. Now what? Where does it all go from here? Well, that question brings us to the great energy transfer, or as you probably know it, the food chain.
Yeah, the one we all learned about in school is the grazing food chain. It's pretty straightforward. A producer, like grass, gets eaten by a primary consumer, say a goat. The goat then gets eaten by a secondary consumer, a person. And each of these steps, that's what scientists call a trophic level.
But, and this is a big but, that is not the only way energy moves around. There's also the detritus food chain, which starts with dead stuff, fallen leaves, dead animals. And get this is the real kicker. In most land-based ecosystems, a much bigger chunk of energy flows through this dead pathway than the living one. Think about that. That means most of the real energy action is happening right under our feet, in the dirt.
Now, here is the absolute key to understanding all of this. Moving that energy up the food chain is incredibly inefficient. With every single step you take up that chain, only about 10% of the energy from the level below actually gets stored. This 10% law is the reason top predators like tigers or eagles are so rare. There just isn't enough energy left at the top to support huge populations of them. Okay, so this brings up a huge question, right? If 90% of the energy is lost at each step and all living things eventually die, what happens to all the energy and nutrients that are still locked up inside them? This is where life's ultimate recyclers come in.
And you actually know these recyclers pretty well. There's this great line about the earthworm being the farmer's friend, and it's so true. Organisms like earthworms and fungi and bacteria, they're all decomposers. Their job is to break down all the dead stuff, making sure that absolutely nothing goes to waste. And this image just shows the whole cycle so perfectly. A leaf falls from a tree. It gets broken down by critters like snails and fungi and worms. They return all those raw nutrients back to the soil, where the tree can suck them right back up again to make new leaves. Boom, a perfect loop. The end is truly the beginning. So this whole recycling gig, it actually happens in 5 main steps. First up, you've got fragmentation.
which is just earthworms and other critters breaking big things into little pieces. Then comes leaching, where water washes out some nutrients. After that, it's catabolism, where bacteria and fungi get to work on a chemical level. This leads to humification, creating that dark, rich soil we call humus. And finally, mineralization, which releases those basic nutrients back for the plants to use. It's a perfect system.
So when you put all these rules together, from making the energy to eating it to recycling it, it actually creates a really predictable shape, a structure in any ecosystem. And the cool part is we can actually draw a picture of it.
And the way ecologists do that is with these things called ecological pyramids. Think of it like this. The producers, all the plants, they're the huge base at the bottom. And as you go up each step of the food chain, the levels get smaller and smaller, all the way to the top consumers at the very peak. And we can draw these pyramids based on the number of organisms, their total weight or biomass, or the energy they hold.
But of course, nature loves to throw us a curveball. Sometimes these pyramids present a real puzzle. In the ocean, for example, the pyramid of biomass can be flipped upside down. The total weight of all the fish can actually be more than the total weight of the tiny phytoplankton they're eating. How is that even possible? It shouldn't work, right? Well, the secret is in the one pyramid that can never lie. It can never, ever be inverted. And that's the pyramid of energy. See, because you always lose energy as heat with each transfer, there's always less energy available the higher you go. Those phytoplankton might not weigh much at any one time, but they reproduce like crazy. So their crazy fast energy production can support a much bigger, slower-growing population of fish.
Now, we have to be honest here. These pyramids are a simplification. I mean, real life is more like a tangled-up food web, not a neat and tidy food chain, right? And the biggest missing piece? The decomposers. They don't even get a spot on the pyramid, but they're absolutely essential to the whole shebang.
And that really brings us to a final thought to leave you with. A single animal, like a sparrow, can be on multiple levels at once. When it eats seeds, it's a primary consumer. When it eats insects, it's a secondary consumer. So think about your own diet. What you had for lunch today. How many different trophic levels do you occupy?